I received the call that changed everything on a Tuesday evening. My 12-year-old daughter Emma, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. She was calling from a homeless shelter across town. My own mother and sister had dropped her off there before heading to a luxury restaurant, claiming they didn't have space for her. I felt my world imploding as I raced across town, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. They had finally gone too far. My name is Darcy Williams. I'm a 34-year-old single mom to the most amazing 12-year-old daughter you could imagine. Emma has my wavy brown hair but got her father's bright blue eyes, a constant reminder of the man who walked out on us when she was just 3 years old. Since then, it's been just the two of us against the world. I wish I could say my family had been supportive, but that would be a lie. The Williams family has always been about appearances, status, and maintaining what my mother Janet calls a certain standard. I was the family disappointment from the moment I got pregnant at 21. Before finishing college, with a boyfriend my parents had always considered beneath our social standing. "Darcy, you're throwing your life away," my mother had said when I told her I was keeping the baby. "What will people think?" That sentence pretty much sums up my mother's approach to life. It was never about what was right or what would make me happy, only about what others might think. My older sister Amanda followed in our mother's footsteps perfectly. She married a successful attorney, had 3 perfectly spaced children, and lived in a mansion in the right neighborhood. For years, family gatherings were exercises in humiliation. My mother and sister would make subtle comments about my small apartment, my modest job as an administrative assistant at a local community college, and especially about Emma. "It's so brave of you to manage as a single mother," Amanda would say at family dinners, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I just don't know how you do it without help." The subtext was always clear. I had failed by their standards, and Emma was living proof of that failure. Despite their attitude, I tried to maintain a relationship with my family, mostly for Emma's sake. I wanted her to have grandparents, an aunt, cousins, all the things that make up a normal family life. But my family never fully embraced Emma. She was always seated at the kids' table during holidays, even as her cousins were gradually moved to the adult table once they reached 12. She received less expensive gifts at Christmas, was excluded from family photos, and was often forgotten when planning family outings. Last month, I received an invitation to my mother's 60th birthday dinner. The elegant card specified a 5-star restaurant downtown, with a handwritten note from my mother. It would be lovely to have the whole family together. I was surprised, but hopeful. Maybe this was finally an olive branch, a chance for reconciliation after all these years of tension. Emma was excited too, immediately asking if she could wear the new dress we'd bought for her school concert. "Grandma invited us to her birthday dinner," she exclaimed, twirling around our small living room. "I'll make her a special card with those calligraphy pens Aunt Patricia gave me for Christmas." Aunt Patricia is my mother's sister, the only member of my extended family who has consistently shown kindness to Emma and me. She never had children of her own, and has always had a soft spot for Emma, sending thoughtful gifts, and occasionally taking her for special outings. Unfortunately, Patricia lived 3 states away, and was often traveling for work, so we didn't see her often. The day before my mother's birthday dinner, Amanda called. "Hey Darcy," she said, her voice overly cheerful. "About tomorrow night, the restaurant is really exclusive, and they're being strict about the reservation numbers." "What do you mean?" I asked, already feeling a familiar sinking sensation. "Well, we won't have space for Emma at the table. We tried to add another seat, but the restaurant said they're completely booked." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "Between us, I think Mom would prefer an adults, only evening anyway. It's a very upscale place." I felt my face flush with anger. Emma was specifically invited. Her name was on the invitation. Was it? I'm sure that was just an oversight. "Look, I know it's last minute, but maybe she could stay with a friend? Or what about Aunt Patricia?" "Patricia is in Arizona this week," I said flatly. "Well, figure something out," Amanda said dismissively. "Mom's really looking forward to having all of us there, the adults, I mean. Emma would be bored anyway." I wanted to argue, to tell Amanda exactly what I thought of this obvious exclusion, but years of conditioning to avoid family conflict kicked in. Besides, maybe it would be better for Emma not to be subjected to an evening of subtle put-downs and cold shoulders. Fine, I said reluctantly. I'll make arrangements for Emma. Perfect. See you tomorrow at 7. Don't be late. After hanging up, I explained the situation to Emma as gently as I could, watching her face fall with disappointment. But I made Grandma a special card, she said, holding up an intricately decorated piece of cardstock. And I was going to wear my new dress. I know, sweetie, and I'm sorry. We'll drop the card off, and I promise we'll have dessert together after I get back. Maybe we can go to that ice cream place you love. Emma nodded bravely, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. It was the same look she'd had so many times before when my family had made it clear she wasn't a priority. The next day, I called every friend I could think of, but with such short notice, no one was available to watch Emma. As a last resort, I called Aunt Patricia, hoping she might know someone who could help. Patricia, I'm so sorry to bother you on your trip, but I'm in a bind. After explaining the situation, Patricia sighed heavily. That sounds exactly like something Janet would do. I'm sorry, Darcy, but I'm in Sedona until Friday. Let me think. What about Margot? She lives in your mother's neighborhood. Margot was my mother's housekeeper, a kind woman who had often slipped Emma cookies when we visited. I could ask, I said doubtfully. Tell her I'll pay her for the evening, Patricia offered. And Darcy? Don't let them get to you. You and Emma deserve better. I called Margot, who agreed to watch Emma for the evening. When I dropped Emma off at Margot's small house near my mother's neighborhood, I felt uneasy. Something about the whole situation felt wrong, but I pushed my concerns aside. It would just be for a few hours. Be good for Margot, I told Emma, hugging her tightly. I'll pick you up right after dinner and we'll get that ice cream. Okay, Mom, Emma said, putting on a brave smile. Tell Grandma happy birthday from me. As I drove away, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw Emma standing in Margot's doorway, looking small and abandoned. I almost turned the car around then, ready to forget the whole dinner. If only I had listened to that instinct. I arrived at La Maison, the upscale French restaurant downtown, at exactly 7 o'clock. The valet took my slightly battered Honda Civic with a poorly concealed look of disdain, contrasting sharply with his deferential treatment of the luxury vehicles ahead of mine. Inside, the maitre d' led me to a private dining room where my family was already gathered. My mother sat at the head of the table, elegant in a designer dress, with her silver hair perfectly styled. My sister Amanda and her husband Tom flanked her, along with various aunts, uncles, and cousins. What stopped me cold was the sight of Amanda's 3 children. Tyler, 14, Madeline, 12, and Sophia, 10, all sitting at the table, dressed in expensive outfits and looking completely at home in the fancy restaurant. Darcy! You made it, my mother called, gesturing for me to take the empty seat near the foot of the table. We were just about to order appetizers. I remained standing, staring at my nieces and nephew. I thought there wasn't space for children, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. That's why Emma couldn't come. A moment of uncomfortable silence followed, before Amanda laughed lightly. Don't be silly, Darcy. I never said children weren't allowed, just that the reservation was tight. The kids have been looking forward to this for weeks. I looked around the table and noticed an empty chair next to mine. There seems to be plenty of room. My mother cleared her throat. Darcy, please sit down. You're making a scene. We can discuss this later. Seething but not wanting to create drama in front of everyone, I took my seat. Throughout the elaborate 5-course meal, I tried repeatedly to call Margot to check on Emma, but my calls went straight to voicemail. By the 3rd attempt, I was starting to worry. Is something wrong? My Uncle Bill asked as I checked my phone again. I'm trying to reach Emma, I explained. She's staying with Margot tonight, but no one's answering. Margot? My mother looked confused. My housekeeper Margot? She's on vacation visiting her daughter in Florida this week. I felt a cold rush of panic. That's impossible. I dropped Emma off at her house just before coming here. Well, she's certainly not there, my mother said dismissively. Her daughter had a baby, and Margot left 3 days ago. Now, who wants to see the birthday cake? The restaurant is known for their chocolate ganache. My heart pounding, I excused myself to the restroom, intending to call Emma directly. As I approached the ladies' room, I heard familiar voices coming from inside my mother and Amanda. I still can't believe she fell for it, Amanda was saying, her voice echoing slightly off the marble walls. As if Margot would ever agree to babysit that child. Well, it solved the problem, didn't it? My mother's voice was smug. I wasn't having my birthday photos ruined by that girl's presence. She looks more like her father every day. And you know what I thought of him. I froze outside the door, unable to believe what I was hearing. Where did you tell her you were taking Emma again? My mother asked. Amanda laughed. We didn't exactly specify. We just said we knew a safe place where she could wait while Darcy attended your dinner. That homeless shelter on Pine Street has supervision and everything. It's not like we left her on the street. It's a good lesson for Darcy, my mother added. Maybe now she'll understand there are standards in this family. If she had made better choices, she wouldn't be in this position. Tyler and Madeline were asking why their cousin never comes to family events, Amanda continued. I told them, Emma is just different. Doesn't fit with the family image, you know. You did the right thing, my mother assured her. Now, we should get back before Darcy starts asking more questions. She's always been too sensitive. My entire body felt cold, then hot with rage. My 12-year-old daughter was at a homeless shelter while my family celebrated with champagne and expensive food. I pushed the bathroom door open, finding my mother applying lipstick while Amanda adjusted her designer dress. They both startled when they saw me, clearly realizing I had overheard them. Darcy, my mother began, her tone instantly shifting to one of authority. You shouldn't eavesdrop on private conversations. Where exactly did you take my daughter? I demanded, my voice shaking with barely controlled fury. Amanda rolled her eyes. It's just for a few hours, Darcy. Don't be so dramatic. The shelter has staff and everything. You abandoned my 12-year-old daughter at a homeless shelter, on purpose, because you didn't want her in your precious birthday photos? Lower your voice, my mother hissed, glancing toward the door. People will hear you. I don't care who hears me. I was beyond caring about appearances or causing a scene. Which shelter? Tell me exactly where Emma is, right now. Pine Street Community Shelter, Amanda sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. She's fine, Darcy. It's just a joke. A joke? You think abandoning a child at a homeless shelter is a joke? My mother stepped forward, her face hard. Nothing bad will happen to her. It's just for a few hours to teach you both a lesson about family standards. If you'd raised her properly. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I pushed past them and ran back to the dining room, grabbed my purse from my chair, and headed for the exit without saying goodbye to anyone. I could hear my mother calling after me, but I didn't look back. The 15-minute drive to the Pine Street Community Shelter was the longest of my life. I ran every red light I safely could, my hands shaking on the steering wheel as tears blurred my vision. How long had Emma been there? What was she thinking? Was she safe? The shelter was located in a rundown part of town, a converted school building with security bars on the windows and a small faded sign by the entrance. I parked haphazardly and ran inside, finding a sparse reception area where a tired-looking woman sat behind a desk. My daughter, I gasped, Emma Williams. My family dropped her off here. She's 12 years old. Please tell me she's okay. The woman's expression shifted from bored to concerned. The young girl? She's been here about 2 hours. We tried to call child services. We're not equipped to supervise minors without guardians. I'm her mother, I explained frantically. I had no idea they were bringing her here. Please, where is she? The woman led me down a hallway to a small office where Emma sat curled up in a chair, her arms wrapped around her knees. When she saw me, her face crumpled, and she burst into tears. Mom! She cried, running into my arms. You came! Aunt Amanda said you told them to bring me here because there wasn't room for me at Grandma's party. She said you'd pick me up tomorrow. The realization that Emma thought I had approved this arrangement was like a physical blow. I held her tightly, my own tears falling into her hair. No, baby, no. I would never do that. I thought you were at Margot's house. I had no idea they brought you here. I'm so sorry. The shelter worker watched us with a sympathetic expression. Your sister and mother told us you had arranged for your daughter to stay here overnight. They filled out paperwork saying they were authorized to drop her off on your behalf. I couldn't even process the level of calculation that had gone into this cruelty. They lied. I would never leave my daughter at a shelter. They did this behind my back. After filling out forms to document what had happened and promising to follow up with a formal complaint, I took Emma home. She was quiet in the car, occasionally wiping away tears. What happened at the shelter, Emma? I asked gently. She shrugged, looking out the window. Nothing really. A lady showed me where the bathroom was and gave me a juice box. Some people were sleeping on mats in a big room. There was a man who kept talking to himself in the corner. I was scared, but I tried to be brave. My heart broke, imagining her sitting alone in that environment, believing I had sanctioned it. When we got home, I ran a bubble bath for Emma and made her favorite hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. After she went to bed, exhausted from the ordeal, my phone lit up with text messages from my family. From Amanda. Way to make a scene on Mom's birthday. It was just a joke. Emma was fine. From my mother. Your behavior tonight was unacceptable. Call me tomorrow when you've calmed down and are ready to apologize. From my cousin Stephanie. What happened tonight? Why did you leave so suddenly? I turned off my phone, unable to deal with their twisted version of reality. The next morning, Emma refused to go to school, complaining of a stomachache. I didn't push her, calling in sick to work myself. We spent the day watching movies on the couch, neither of us talking about what had happened. That evening, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, I turned my phone back on to find more messages, including one from Aunt Patricia asking if everything was okay. I called her immediately, pouring out the whole horrible story. They did what? Patricia's voice rose in disbelief. A homeless shelter? For a 12-year-old child? Have they completely lost their minds? I don't know what to do, Patricia, I admitted, my voice breaking. Emma won't talk about it. She's withdrawing. And they're acting like I'm the one who overreacted. You call Janet right now, Patricia said firmly. You demand an apology. Not just to you, but to Emma. This crosses every line of basic human decency, let alone family loyalty. Bolstered by Patricia's support, I called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice cold. Finally decided to apologize for ruining my birthday, have you? Apologize? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You abandoned my daughter at a homeless shelter, lied to her that I approved it, and you think I should apologize? It was Amanda's idea, not mine, my mother deflected. And it's not as though anything happened to her. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, as usual. Mom, what you and Amanda did wasn't just cruel, it was potentially illegal. You can't just drop off a minor at a shelter without parental consent. Oh, please, my mother scoffed. Now you're threatening legal action against your own family? This is exactly why we've always had to keep you at arm's length, Darcy. You've never understood how to handle things with appropriate discretion. I want you and Amanda to apologize to Emma. She thought I had approved leaving her there. Do you understand what that did to her? To our relationship? If you're going to be this dramatic, perhaps it would be better if you didn't attend family functions for a while, my mother said coldly. We've always made accommodations for you and Emma despite your situation, but there are limits to everyone's patience. My situation? I repeated, anger rising again. You mean being a single mother? Working hard to support my daughter without help? That situation? I mean your insistence on keeping that child when you had other options, and then expecting the entire family to pretend it wasn't a mistake. We've tolerated it for years, Darcy, but your attitude has become impossible. I was speechless for a moment, the full weight of my mother's disdain finally crystal clear. Don't worry, Mom. You won't have to tolerate us anymore. Stay away from Emma. Stay away from me. We're done. I hung up, hands shaking. From the doorway came a small voice. Mom? Emma stood there in her pajamas, eyes wide. I realized with horror that she had heard enough of the conversation to understand what it meant. They hate me, she said simply. Grandma, and Aunt Amanda. They all hate me. I rushed to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. No, baby, they don't hate you. They're not good people, and they don't deserve to have you in their lives. But they're family, Emma whispered against my shoulder. Not anymore, I said firmly. From now on, it's just you and me, and people who actually love us. As I held my daughter, I made a silent promise. This wasn't over. My family had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Over the next few weeks, Emma's behavior changed in ways that broke my heart. My normally cheerful, outgoing daughter became withdrawn and anxious. She had nightmares and would wake up crying, asking why her family didn't want her. Her grades began to slip, and her teacher called to ask if everything was all right at home. I found a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, Dr. Winters, who agreed to see Emma twice a week. After their third session, she asked to speak with me privately. Emma is experiencing significant feelings of rejection and abandonment, Dr. Winters explained. Being left at the shelter was traumatic, but learning it was done deliberately by family members has shaken her sense of security and self-worth. What can I do? I asked desperately. Continue with therapy, maintain consistent routines, and reassure her that what happened wasn't her fault, Dr. Winters advised. But I'm concerned about the ongoing family situation. Emma mentioned that this wasn't the first time she felt unwanted by her extended family. Driving home from that appointment, I realized something fundamental had changed within me. The hurt and shame I'd carried for years about not meeting my family's expectations had transformed into cold, clear anger. This wasn't just about one horrible incident. It was about a pattern of behavior that had been damaging both Emma and me for years. No more, I whispered to myself. They don't get to hurt us anymore. That evening after Emma went to bed, I started digging through old papers in my small home office. Tax returns, birthday cards, family documents, anything that might help me understand the full scope of my family's treatment of us. What began as an emotional exercise soon revealed something unexpected. In a folder containing my grandmother's will, she had died when Emma was just a baby. I found mention of trust funds established for all her grandchildren. I had a vague memory of this but had never received any documentation about Emma's trust. According to the will, each grandchild was to receive quarterly statements and would gain access to their trust at age 21. Emma was 12, and we'd never seen a single statement. I called my friend Brian from college, who now worked in finance. Is there any way to find out about a trust fund without going through the trustees? I asked, after explaining the situation. The bank managing the trust should have records, he said. But you'd need to prove you're Emma's guardian. Do you know which bank it is? I didn't, but I remembered my grandmother had always used First National. The next day, I visited a branch and spoke with a manager, presenting Emma's birth certificate and my identification. After some investigation, the manager confirmed that a trust did exist in Emma's name, with my mother and sister listed as trustees along with the bank. Can I see statements from the account? I asked. We need authorization from the trustees for that, she explained apologetically. But I can confirm the account exists and that transactions have been occurring regularly. Transactions? What transactions could be happening with a trust fund that was supposed to be untouched until Emma turned 21? Over the next week, I took a deep dive into my family's financial situation. I requested copies of my grandmother's will from the county records office, spoke with the lawyer who had handled her estate, and even searched public records for my family's business dealings. What I discovered left me stunned. Not only had my mother and sister been accessing Emma's trust fund, which was expressly forbidden by the terms of the trust, but they had been using the money to fund extravagant activities for Amanda's children. Private school tuition, summer camps in Europe, horseback riding lessons all paid for with Emma's inheritance, while we struggled to afford basic necessities. Even more shocking, I found evidence that my mother had manipulated other aspects of my grandmother's will. I had been removed as a beneficiary from several family properties through what appeared to be forged documents. My signature appeared on papers I had never seen, authorizing these changes years ago. I contacted my grandmother's attorney, Mr. Donovan, who had retired, but agreed to meet me for coffee after I explained my concerns. I always thought it was odd that you stopped coming to the annual family trust meetings, he said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. Your mother said you weren't interested in family matters anymore. I was never invited to any meetings, I told him. I didn't even know they were happening. Mr. Donovan frowned, examining the signatures more closely. These don't match the signatures I have on file for you. If these were forged, we're looking at serious financial fraud. What about my grandmother? Is she aware of any of this? He looked confused. Your grandmother? Helen is still alive, Darcy. She moved to the family lake house after her stroke 5 years ago. I sat back, stunned. My grandmother is alive? My mother told me she died 7 years ago. We even attended a funeral. Mr. Donovan's expression hardened. Helen had a stroke, but she recovered significantly. She's been asking about you and Emma for years. Janet always said you were too busy with your own life to visit. The betrayal was so deep, so systemic, that I could barely process it. My grandmother, the one person in the family who had always shown me unconditional love, was alive, and my mother had deliberately kept us apart while stealing Emma's inheritance. What can I do? I asked Mr. Donovan. Document everything, he advised. I'll help you. This goes beyond family disagreement, Darcy. This is criminal activity. Over the next 2 weeks, I meticulously gathered evidence. Bank statements showing withdrawals from Emma's trust, forged documents, records of how the money had been spent. I also discovered that my mother had been lying to my grandmother about me for years, showing her photoshopped pictures of Emma at family events we had never attended, and intercepting cards and gifts meant for us. While assembling this evidence, I received an invitation to the annual Williams Family Foundation Charity Gala, a high-profile event where my family showcased their philanthropic efforts to their social circle. I had never been invited before, but now I understood why my mother hadn't wanted me anywhere near my grandmother, who always attended these events. The invitation was clearly sent by mistake, probably meant for another Darcy Williams in their social circle, but it was exactly the opportunity I needed. As I prepared my case with Mr. Donovan's help, I received a call from Emma's school counselor. Mrs. Williams, I'm concerned about an essay Emma wrote for her English class. Her teacher brought it to my attention immediately. What's wrong with it? I asked, already dreading the answer. The assignment was to write about family traditions, but Emma's essay focused on feeling unwanted and there are some concerning statements about self-harm. I think you should come in right away. I rushed to the school, my heart pounding. In the counselor's office, I found Emma sitting with her head down, tears streaming down her face. The counselor handed me the essay, titled Garbage Day. In painful detail, Emma had described feeling like garbage that even family can throw away. She wrote about lying awake at night, wondering what was wrong with her, why her own grandmother and aunt would leave her at a homeless shelter, and whether everyone would be happier if she disappeared forever. The final line read, "Sometimes I think about what it would be like to just not be here anymore. Would anyone even notice?" "Emma," I whispered, kneeling beside her chair. "Why didn't you tell me you were feeling this way?" She looked up, her eyes red from crying. "I didn't want to make you sad, Mom. You're already working so hard. And maybe Grandma is right. Maybe I am a mistake." The counselor stepped out to give us privacy, and I took Emma's hands in mine. That's when I noticed the thin bandages around her wrists. "Emma, what did you do?" I asked, terror rising in my throat. "It wasn't deep," she whispered. "I just wanted to see if it would make the bad feelings go away." "I'm sorry, Mom." I pulled her into my arms, my entire body shaking. This was no longer just about justice or money or even family betrayal. This was about my daughter's life. "Listen to me," I said, holding her face between my hands. "You are not a mistake. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. What they did was wrong, so wrong that it's actually criminal. And I promise you, they will never hurt you again." That night, as Emma slept under the watchful eye of Dr. Winters, who had come to our home for an emergency session, I made a decision. The confrontation I had been planning for the charity gala couldn't wait another 2 weeks. My daughter's life depended on justice being served now. I took the next day off work and spent hours preparing my approach. This wasn't just about emotional satisfaction. I needed to be strategic. With Mr. Donovan's guidance, I organized my evidence into clear, irrefutable documentation. I made copies of everything, one set for my grandmother, one for the police if necessary, and one to keep secure with Mr. Donovan. The annual Williams Family Foundation Charity Gala was scheduled for Saturday evening at the Grand Hotel downtown. It was a black-tie affair attended by local business leaders, politicians, and the city's social elite, all people my mother and sister desperately wanted to impress. "Are you sure you want to do it this way?" Mr. Donovan asked during our final meeting. "A private confrontation might be less risky. They've been publicly humiliating Emma and me for years," I replied. "And they've been using their public image to cover up their crimes. It's time for the truth to come out." I bought a simple black dress I could barely afford and arranged for Emma to stay with Dr. Winters for the evening. I didn't want her anywhere near this confrontation, but I promised to tell her everything afterward. "I'm going to make things right," I told her before leaving. "I promise." When I arrived at the Grand Hotel, the ballroom was already filled with guests in expensive attire, mingling over champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A string quartet played in the corner, and elaborate flower arrangements decorated every table. I spotted my mother immediately, holding court near the main stage in a designer gown, laughing with a group of admirers. My sister Amanda stood nearby with her husband Tom, both looking impeccably styled and completely at ease in this environment. Neither of them had noticed me yet. I scanned the room for my grandmother and finally spotted her at a table near the windows. She looked smaller than I remembered, her once imposing presence diminished by age and illness. Her stroke had clearly affected the left side of her face, but her eyes were alert and sharp as ever. Taking a deep breath, I approached her table. "Excuse me," I said to the elderly man seated beside her. "Would you mind if I spoke with my grandmother for a moment?" Helen Williams looked up, confusion crossing her face before recognition dawned. "Darcy? Is that you?" "Hello, Grandma," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's been a long time." "Too long," she replied, reaching for my hand. "Janet said you moved across the country years ago. When did you come back?" "I never left, Grandma. I've been here the whole time, just 20 minutes from your house." Her expression darkened. "What are you saying?" "There's a lot I need to tell you," I said, taking the empty seat beside her, "and I need you to see these documents." I began showing her the evidence I had gathered: the forged signatures, the misappropriated trust funds, the doctored photos. With each revelation, her face grew more troubled, her hands beginning to shake. "This can't be true," she whispered. "Janet wouldn't do this." "I'm afraid it is true," I replied gently. "And there's more. They've been keeping Emma away from you too. She thinks you died years ago." "Emma?" Her voice cracked. "My great-granddaughter? Janet told me you didn't want her to know me because of my health problems." "Emma is 12 now, Grandma. She's beautiful and smart and kind, and she's been deeply hurt by this family." I told her everything about the years of exclusion, about the homeless shelter incident, about Emma's recent despair. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my grandmother's face, and her companion was looking increasingly concerned. "Shall I get Janet?" he asked, half rising from his seat. "Not yet," my grandmother said, her voice finding strength again. "Darcy, I need a moment to process this. If what you're saying is true—" "It is," I assured her. "I have proof of everything." "Then we have a serious problem to address." She straightened in her chair, a glimpse of the formidable woman I remembered from my childhood returning to her bearing. "I want to see Janet and Amanda. Now." I helped my grandmother to her feet, and together we made our way across the ballroom to where my mother was still entertaining guests. "Janet," my grandmother called, her voice carrying despite her frailty. "We need to talk." My mother turned, her smile freezing when she saw me beside her mother. "Mom, you should be resting at your table. Here, let me help you." "I don't need help," my grandmother said firmly. "What I need is an explanation. Darcy has shown me some very disturbing documents." My mother's eyes darted to me, then to the folder in my hands. "This isn't the time or place for family discussions. We can talk about this tomorrow at home." "No," I said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. We're going to talk about it now. About how you and Amanda have been stealing from Emma's trust fund for years. About how you forged my signature on legal documents. About how you told Grandma I'd moved away when I've been here the whole time. People around us had stopped their conversations, turning to watch the drama unfold. Amanda quickly joined us, her face a mask of controlled panic. "Darcy is having some mental health issues," she said smoothly to the onlookers. "We've been trying to get her help. Let's move this conversation somewhere private." "I'm not going anywhere," I replied. "For years, you've used these public events to maintain your image as caring, generous people. But the truth is you abandoned my 12-year-old daughter at a homeless shelter just to keep her out of your precious birthday photos. You've been systematically isolating us from the family while stealing Emma's inheritance." Gasps came from several listeners. My mother's face had gone white with anger and fear. "That's a ridiculous accusation," she hissed. "You've always been jealous of Amanda's success, always looking for ways to embarrass the family. Is it ridiculous?" I opened my folder and began holding up documents. Here are bank statements showing withdrawals from Emma's trust money that paid for Tyler's sailing camp and Madeline's horse. Here are papers with my forged signature, removing me from Grandma's will. And here I held up Emma's heartbreaking essay, "Is What Your Cruelty Has Done to Your Own Granddaughter." My mother lunged for the papers, but my grandmother's companion stepped between us. "Janet, control yourself," my grandmother ordered. "Is this true? Did you leave my great-granddaughter at a homeless shelter?" Before my mother could respond, a quiet voice spoke from behind us. "It's all true." We turned to find my Aunt Patricia standing there. I hadn't even known she was in town. "Patricia," my mother said warningly, "stay out of this." "No, Janet. I've stayed silent too long." Patricia moved to stand beside me. "I've watched you systematically isolate Darcy for years. I've seen how you treat Emma like she's invisible. But even I didn't know about the trust fund fraud or the forged documents." "You don't know what you're talking about," Amanda snapped. "Don't I?" Patricia countered. "I know you told Darcy's ex-husband lies about her to encourage him to leave. I know you blocked at least 3 job opportunities for Darcy by giving her negative references. I know you've been manipulating this entire family with lies for decades." The crowd around us had grown, and I could see the horror and fascination on their faces as the Williams family's carefully constructed facade crumbled before their eyes. "You're making a scene," my mother said desperately, trying to lower her voice. "People are watching." "Good," I replied. "Let them watch. Let them see who you really are. You ungrateful little—" My mother's composure finally broke. "After everything we've done for you, taking you back after you got yourself knocked up, allowing that child at family events." "Allowing?" My grandmother's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Emma is family, Janet. She's my great-granddaughter. You had no right to keep her from me, no right to steal her inheritance, and certainly no right to abandon her at a homeless shelter." My mother realized too late that she had confirmed everything with her outburst. She looked around at the shocked faces of her friends and social peers, people whose good opinion she had cultivated for decades. "Janet," said an older woman I recognized as the chairperson of the hospital board, "is this true? Did you really abandon a child at a homeless shelter?" "It wasn't like that," my mother stammered. "The girl was perfectly safe. It was just for a few hours. Darcy is making it sound worse than it was." "And the trust fund?" asked a man in an expensive suit. "The forgeries?" "Business matters can be complicated," Amanda interjected smoothly. "I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding that we can clear up privately." "There's no misunderstanding," I said firmly. "And I have all the documentation right here. My daughter has been suicidal because of what you did to her. This stops now." The word suicidal sent a fresh wave of murmurs through the crowd. I could see people backing away from my mother and sister, the social pariahs they had always feared becoming. My grandmother turned to the room at large. "As founder of the Williams Family Foundation and head of this family, I want to apologize for the actions of my daughter and granddaughter. There will be a full investigation into the foundation's finances and the trust funds they've managed, and there will be consequences." She turned to me, taking my hand. "Darcy, I want to meet Emma as soon as possible. Will you bring her to see me tomorrow?" Of course, I promised, tears of relief filling my eyes. As the crowd dispersed into small groups of furious whispers, I gathered my evidence and prepared to leave. My mother grabbed my arm as I passed. "You've ruined everything," she hissed. "Are you happy now?" I looked at her, seeing clearly for the first time the emptiness behind her perfect facade. "This isn't about making me happy, Mom. It's about justice for Emma. It's about truth. And it's about making sure you never hurt us again." I walked out of the ballroom with my head held high, leaving behind the wreckage of my family's carefully constructed lies. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly free. The aftermath of the charity gala confrontation was swift and far-reaching. By the time I arrived home that night, my phone was filled with messages from family members and acquaintances, some expressing shock, others offering support, and a few demanding explanations. I ignored them all, focusing instead on telling Emma what had happened. I sat on the edge of her bed after picking her up from Dr. Winter's house, choosing my words carefully. "I want you to know that everything that happened with Grandma, Janet, and Aunt Amanda wasn't your fault," I began. "They've been lying to a lot of people for a long time, including us." I explained about finding my grandmother alive, about the trust fund, and about the confrontation at the gala, edited slightly to be age-appropriate. "Great, Grandma Helen wants to meet you," I told her. "She didn't know we were still living here. She's been lied to as well." Emma listened with wide eyes, occasionally asking questions. "So great. Grandma never knew about the homeless shelter?" "No, sweetheart. And she was very upset when she found out. She wants to make things right." "Are Grandma Janet and Aunt Amanda going to jail?" Emma asked. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "What they did was wrong, and there might be legal consequences. But what's most important is that you know none of this was because of anything you did. You are perfect exactly as you are, and you are so loved." The next morning, I took Emma to meet her great-grandmother at the family lake house. It was a beautiful property that I hadn't visited since my early 20s, nestled among pine trees with a stunning view of the water. Helen Williams was waiting for us on the porch, seated in a comfortable chair with a blanket over her knees, despite the warm spring day. When she saw Emma, tears filled her eyes. "You look just like your mother did at your age," she said, opening her arms. "Come here and let me look at you properly." Emma approached cautiously, but Helen's warm smile soon put her at ease. Within an hour, they were looking through old photo albums together, with Helen telling stories about me as a child that Emma had never heard before. While they bonded, I spoke with Mr. Donovan, who had come to discuss next steps. "The bank has frozen all the trust accounts pending investigation," he informed me. "And I've filed a formal complaint about the forged documents. This could lead to criminal charges, Darcy. Are you prepared for that?" "I have to be," I replied, watching Emma laugh at something my grandmother had said. "For Emma's sake, I can't let this go." Over the next few days, the situation developed rapidly. My mother and Amanda hired expensive attorneys and issued a joint statement claiming misunderstandings about the family finances. But the evidence was overwhelming, and when several bank employees came forward confirming they had witnessed suspicious transactions, even their legal team looked concerned. My grandmother took decisive action, removing my mother as president of the family foundation and freezing her access to family funds. She revised her will, ensuring that Emma's inheritance would be protected, and appointed Mr. Donovan as the sole trustee until Emma reached adulthood. The social fallout was perhaps the most painful for my status-conscious mother and sister. Several of my mother's friends on charitable boards asked her to resign. Amanda's husband, Tom, was reportedly furious about the potential legal jeopardy she had placed him in, and rumors of their marriage troubles spread quickly. A week after the gala, I received an unexpected call from a woman named Margaret Sutton, whom I vaguely remembered as one of my grandmother's friends. "Darcy, I was at the gala last weekend," she began without preamble. "I have to say, I was impressed by your courage. It can't have been easy to confront your family that way." "Thank you," I replied, unsure where this was going. "I'm calling because I'm on the board of Westridge Community College. We're looking for a new director of student affairs, and your grandmother mentioned you work in college administration. I'm just an administrative assistant, I clarified. But you have a degree in education, correct? And experience working in a college environment? Plus, you clearly have integrity and courage qualities we value highly. Would you be interested in interviewing for the position? The salary she mentioned was more than twice what I currently earned. With trembling hands, I scheduled an interview for the following week. That evening, Aunt Patricia came to our apartment for dinner, the first time any family member, besides my grandmother, had visited our home in years. I should have done more, she said as we washed dishes together after Emma had gone to bed. I knew Janet and Amanda were excluding you, but I had no idea how far it had gone. You were the only one who ever showed Emma any kindness, I reminded her. Those calligraphy pens you sent her for Christmas? She uses them every day. Patricia wiped a tear from her eye. I've missed so much of her life. Of your life. We have time to change that now, I assured her. 2 weeks after the confrontation, the district attorney's office informed us they were pursuing charges against my mother and Amanda for financial fraud, forgery, and misappropriation of funds. The investigation had uncovered even more irregularities than we initially found, including embezzlement from the family foundation. When the news broke, Amanda called me for the first time since the gala. You have to stop this, she demanded, her voice stripped of its usual polish. Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family? To my children? I'm protecting my child, I replied calmly. Something you might want to consider doing. Your children will have questions about why their mother might go to jail. What will you tell them? This will ruin us, she whispered. Is that what you want? Revenge? This isn't about revenge, Amanda. It's about justice. It's about Emma knowing that what happened to her matters, that she matters. You and Mom made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. After hanging up, I sat on my couch feeling strangely hollow. There was no satisfaction in their downfall, only relief that Emma would be protected from their cruelty in the future. The most unexpected development came from Emma herself. As the legal proceedings began, and she continued her therapy sessions, she slowly began to emerge from her shell again. Her nightmares became less frequent, and she started showing interest in activities she had abandoned after the homeless shelter incident. One evening, she came to me with a notebook filled with drawings. Dr. Winters said art therapy might help, she explained, showing me page after page of colorful images. Many were dark at first, a small figure alone in big empty spaces, shadowy figures turning away. But the more recent ones showed something different. A girl surrounded by a smaller circle of smiling figures, standing in sunlight. That's you, she pointed to a figure beside the girl. And that's great, Grandma Helen and Aunt Patricia. And Dr. Winters. She hesitated. I didn't draw Grandma Janet or Aunt Amanda. Is that okay? I pulled her into a hug. That's more than okay. You get to choose who belongs in your life, Emma. Always. As spring turned to summer, our lives settled into a new pattern. I accepted the position at Westridge Community College. Emma and I moved from our small apartment to a modest but comfortable house closer to my new job and her school. My grandmother became a regular presence in our lives, joining us for Sunday dinners and attending Emma's school performances. The legal proceedings against my mother and sister continued, with a trial date set for the fall. They both faced potential jail time, though their attorneys were working desperately to arrange plea deals. The family foundation underwent a complete restructuring under my grandmother's direction, with new safeguards to prevent future misappropriation. Perhaps the most profound change was in Emma. As she felt more secure in her new support system of people who genuinely loved her, her natural resilience reasserted itself. The sad, withdrawn girl of the past few months gradually gave way to a more confident, open child who began to trust again. One warm evening as we sat on the porch of our new home, Emma reading while I worked on laptop, she looked up suddenly. "Mom?" she asked. "Do you think people can change? Like, really change?" I considered the question carefully. I think some people can, if they truly want to, and are willing to work at it. Why do you ask? I was thinking about Grandma Janet and Aunt Amanda, she said. Do you think they're sorry for what they did? I think they're sorry they got caught, I answered honestly. but I don't know if they understand why what they did was wrong. That's the difference between regret and remorse. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I don't hate them anymore, she said. I used to, but Dr. Winters says hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I marveled at the wisdom of my 12-year-old daughter, who had somehow found a path to healing that many adults never discover. That's very true, I said. We don't have to hate them, we just don't have to have them in our lives. I like our new family better anyway, Emma decided, returning to her book. It's smaller, but it feels more real. Looking at her peaceful, healing, and wise beyond her years, I knew that despite all the pain and betrayal, we had found our way to something better, something true. And in that truth, we had both found strength we never knew we had. 6 months after the confrontation at the charity gala, our lives had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The criminal case against my mother and sister had concluded with both accepting plea deals to avoid lengthy prison sentences. My mother received 3 years of probation, community service, and was ordered to pay significant restitution. Amanda, who had been more directly involved in the forgeries, received a suspended sentence of 18 months and 5 years of probation, along with her own restitution requirements. The financial fallout was severe. My mother was forced to sell her mansion to cover legal fees and payments, moving into a modest condominium that would have once horrified her. Amanda and Tom divorced shortly after her sentencing, with Tom gaining primary custody of their children. The scandal effectively ended their social standing in the community, with former friends suddenly too busy to accept their calls. But while their lives were falling apart, ours was coming together in beautiful ways. My new position as Director of Student Affairs was challenging and fulfilling, allowing me to help young people navigate their college experiences while providing Emma with the stability she deserved. Our new house wasn't large or luxurious, but it was ours, filled with laughter and love in a way our old apartment never could be. My grandmother Helen became a central figure in our lives. At 82, she had a renewal of energy that her doctors attributed to the joy of connecting with her great-granddaughter. She moved from the isolated lake house to a senior living community just 10 minutes from our home, allowing for regular visits and family dinners. Aunt Patricia, too, became a consistent presence. She retired from her traveling job and relocated to our city, stepping into a role that was part aunt, part surrogate mother to me, and part doting great-aunt to Emma. The four of us, Emma, Helen, Patricia, and I, formed a new family unit based on genuine love and respect rather than obligation or appearances. Emma's healing journey continued with the help of Dr. Winters. There were still difficult days, moments when the memory of being abandoned at the shelter would resurface, bringing anxiety and tears. But these episodes became less frequent and less intense as time passed. Her grades improved, she made new friends, and she developed a passionate interest in art therapy that Dr. Winters encouraged. One Wednesday afternoon in November, I received a call from Emma's school counselor that sent a different kind of shock through me. "Mrs. Williams, I wanted to let you know about something remarkable," she began. "Emma submitted a poem to the district-wide creative writing competition, and she's been selected as one of the winners." "That's wonderful!" I exclaimed, pride swelling in my chest. "Yes, but what's truly remarkable is the content. The poem is about resilience and rebuilding after trauma. It's incredibly mature and insightful for a student her age." Her teacher was moved to tears. That evening, Emma shyly showed me the poem, titled Foundations. In simple but powerful language, she described the experience of having her world shattered and then building something stronger from the broken pieces. The final stanza read, "Family isn't always blood or name. It's who stays when the storms rage. From scattered pieces, we build again. A stronger house, a truer home." "It's beautiful, Emma," I said, wiping away tears. "I'm so proud of you." She shrugged, embarrassed by the praise. Dr. Winters said writing could help get the feelings out, and I wanted other kids to know that even when really bad things happen, it can get better. As Christmas approached, Helen suggested hosting a holiday dinner at her apartment in the senior community. "Nothing fancy," she insisted. "Just family." The word family had such a different meaning now. instead of the tense, formal gatherings of the past, where Emma and I always felt like unwelcome outsiders. Our new Christmas celebration was warm and genuine. Helen's apartment was modestly decorated but felt more festive than my mother's elaborately designed holiday displays ever had. Patricia brought homemade cookies. Emma proudly presented everyone with hand-drawn cards featuring her increasingly skilled calligraphy. I contributed a slightly lopsided but delicious apple pie. We ate, laughed, played board games, and not once did anyone worry about appearances or family standards. On New Year's Eve, as Emma and I stood on our porch watching neighborhood fireworks light up the sky, she slipped her hand into mine. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Anything?" I replied. "Do you ever wish things had happened differently? Like, if Grandma Janet and Aunt Amanda had been nice to us all along?" I considered the question carefully. "Sometimes I wish you hadn't been hurt," I said honestly. "But when I think about where we are now, the life we've built, the people we have around us who truly care, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Sometimes the hardest experiences lead us to where we're meant to be." Emma leaned against my side. "I think I understand. It's like my poem, we built something better from the broken pieces." "Exactly," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. In the years since that horrible night when I received Emma's terrified call from the homeless shelter, we had traveled through darkness I never imagined possible. We had confronted generations of family dysfunction, faced painful truths, and been forced to rebuild our lives from the ground up. But standing there with my daughter, watching the new year arrive in a shower of light and color, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Peace. Not the false peace that comes from avoiding conflict or pretending everything is fine, but the genuine peace that comes from living authentically and surrounding yourself with people who love you for who you truly are. The journey had been painful, but the destination was worth every step. We had learned that sometimes family is defined not by blood or name, but by the people who stand beside you in your darkest moments. We had discovered that appearances matter far less than integrity, and that the courage to stand up for what's right can transform not just your own life, but the lives of others around you. Most importantly, we had learned that love, real love, isn't about perfection or status or meeting someone else's standards. It's about acceptance, forgiveness, and the willingness to fight for those who depend on you. As the final fireworks faded from the sky, Emma looked up at me with clear, unburdened eyes. "Happy New Year, Mom." "Happy New Year, sweetheart," I replied, feeling the truth of those words deep in my soul. It was indeed a new year, and for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to it with hope instead of dread. Later that week, I received an unexpected email from the mother of one of Amanda's children, a woman I had met briefly at family functions, but never really known. She explained that her daughter Madeline, now 13, was struggling to understand what had happened with her mother and wanted to connect with her cousin. Would it be possible for Emma and Madeline to meet for lunch sometime? I showed the email to Emma, leaving the decision entirely up to her. "These are your boundaries to set," I told her. "No one would blame you if you didn't want to see any of Amanda's children." Emma thought about it for a long time before responding. "Madeline was always nice to me," she said finally. "And it's not her fault what her mom did. Maybe we could meet at that pizza place by the mall? Just to see how it goes?" Her compassion moved me deeply. After everything she had been through, Emma still had room in her heart for empathy, and second chances not for those who had hurt her, but for innocent bystanders caught in the same toxic web we had escaped. "I think that's a wonderful idea," I said, "and I'm so proud of the person you're becoming." As I watched my daughter grow and heal, I realized that the most important lesson of our journey was this. True strength isn't found in wealth or status or power over others. It's found in the courage to face painful truths, the resilience to rebuild after devastation, and the wisdom to create boundaries that protect what matters most. My family had abandoned my daughter at a homeless shelter because they claimed not to have space for her. In doing so, they revealed the emptiness of their values and the coldness of their hearts. But from that terrible moment came a reckoning that freed us both from generations of toxic family dynamics and opened the door to authentic relationships based on love, rather than obligation. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to say no more, to stand firm in the face of mistreatment, to demand better for ourselves and our children, and to walk away from relationships that damage rather than nurture us. It isn't easy, and the journey isn't straight, but on the other side lies a life of genuine connection and peace that is worth every difficult step along the way. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to distance yourself from toxic family members? What gave you the strength to finally say enough? I hope sharing my story has helped you feel less alone if you're facing similar challenges. Remember that family should be defined by love and respect, not just blood. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family challenges, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to create the family you deserve, whether that's the one you were born into or the one you choose to build.